One time, the gas didn't work. There was a leak in the pipes, so oxygen mixed with the monoxide. It was horrible. But after an hour, they were still moving, stumbling around the room like drunks, their eyes glassy.
What did you do?
I ordered more gas, but we didn't know about the leak. Soon they began to twitch all over, like they were dancing. Some even fell to their knees, laughing this terrible, high-pitched squeal. Even the guards were frightened. It didn't kill them. After 2 hours, I sent 5 men in with rifles.
Before we talk about this guy, let's talk about Stephen King. Now, I'm sure everyone watching this has either read a book by Stephen King or seen a movie or TV show based on one of his stories. There's so many, it's almost like its own subgenre, and I've been a fan of his stuff for years. I'll probably talk about like my favorite novels and adaptations of his and a whole nother series. But today, I want to talk about one film in particular that I happened to watch for the first time very recently. I have to say, I thoroughly enjoyed it despite the number of fans and critics who might have mixed feelings. Apt Pupil was directed by Bryan Singer and based on the novella of the same name. It's about a young teenage boy named Todd, played by Brad Renfro, who discovers that Arthur Denker, an elderly German immigrant living in his neighborhood, played by Ian McKellen, is actually a Nazi war criminal who changed his name and is hiding in the United States. Early in the film, Todd confronts Denker, whose real name is Kurt Dussender, and threatens to report him unless he tells Todd of his experiences in World War II. Recollecting these vivid stories makes Dussender have flashbacks of the Holocaust.
Boy, be careful. You play with fire.
Todd's visits become more and more frequent, and it also starts to have an effect on him. He starts having nightmares and experiencing hallucinations. They become so dramatic that his above-average grades start to plummet, and the school tries to meet with his parents. Their relationship takes a darker turn when not only does Dussender pose as Todd's grandfather when meeting the school counselor, played by David Schwimmer, but also blackmails Todd into getting his grades up, since he's now a liability for hiding his knowledge of Dussender's war crimes. We're so used to seeing stories of the classic, young protagonist and the friendship they have with an older and wiser mentor. We think of Star Wars or Harry Potter, but actually a more relevant example is Lord of the Rings. When people think of Ian McKellen, what comes to mind is the iconic role as Gandalf, being this wise and knowledgeable wizard who Frodo looks up to. Yet when he stars in Apt Pupil, it's more like an antithesis to such a relationship. It's not a regular hero and mentor bonding through love and friendship, but an anti-hero and an antagonist who are bound by blackmail and where a toxic friction grows between them. Great film critics always give credit where it's due. I can think of plenty of films that I didn't really care that much for, but I will admit, had great performances. I was disappointed a little bit with Barbie, but Margot Robbie was great as always. Lady in the Water had some poor M. Night Shyamalan execution, but Paul Giamatti gave it his all. With that said, Ian McKellen really is, as obvious as this may sound, flawless in Apt Pupil. This man immerses himself so much that half the time you forget it's him. Not only does he master just the German accent, but also just the persona of a seemingly kind elderly man who's hiding such a gruesome alter ego. Remember the scene I played for you in the beginning? Notice how it's told not with flashbacks, but Ian McKellen's narration as he's sitting with this young boy. Normally I could complain about the lack of showing versus telling, but just watching Ian McKellen, just watching him tell the story, it never comes off boring, which I think really makes a great performer. Him monologuing actually seems more appropriate because it also puts us in Todd's perspective as he's also listening. Brad Renfro also did a great job methodically playing a young man who starts out wanting to learn more about history, only to slowly turn into a sociopathic murderer. Not only is he curious about the hidden details of the horrors of war, but we as an audience also get curious. The Holocaust was, after all, a true event, as well as the fact that many Nazis escaped from Europe to avoid being tried as war criminals. This is what makes the film all the more terrifying. It's a realistic horror movie, and with the rise of anti-Semitism today, it only echoes the subject matter depicted in the film.
I can be here tomorrow by 3:15. I want to hear the end of this.
The end?
Apt Pupil does have some problems. I really didn't care for David Schwimmer's character. I thought he was a bit out of place. The movie also does make a fair number of changes to the book, which I know is necessary a lot of the time. I would have changed the chronology of the film by having Todd meet Kurt Dussinger first, just like in the novella. This confrontation would have been a much better way to hook the average filmgoer. I will say, while Ian McKellen's character dies very horrifically, the send-off to Renfro's character is not really that engaging and feels a little bit confusing. Maybe they could have had a cliffhanger of Todd possibly shaving his head in the mirror, implying that he will follow in the footsteps of Kurt Dussinger as an apt pupil. These, of course, are just my thoughts on the film, which I find to be quite underrated. As I said, it contains some very heavy subject matter. I also know director Bryan Singer, despite his achievements, was sued for his misconduct during the production of the film. But remember, that's not what this video is about. This is about why I find Apt Pupil to be one of Ian McKellen's greatest and definitely his scariest performance. Let me know what you think, or if there's another movie with him that I need to check out. Thanks for watching.